So typically when you first start learning how to draw any new animal, you would want to have a reference. So in this case I included a reference as well. And you basically you don't need it to match your sketch perfectly, even though some people trace, and that could also be helpful when you're still learning. Of course, the ultimate goal for an artist learning a new animal is to be able to just draw it without having to use a reference. So you're going to want to start out with a sketch where you basically just create the main shapes. Like I used a circle for the head, 2 triangles for the ears, and a blob for the neck, just to get the main basis of what you want to make. You can use quick, short strokes as well, because you're just trying to get the main idea. So with his right leg, I was quite unhappy with the proportions of it. So I used the lasso tool, and then I used the proportion tool that Sketchbook has and made it shorter. So I like to make the tail extra fluffy. That's just how I like it, and I think it looks better, but it's all about your personal preference. I like to make sure I know where the muscles should go, so I just added in that frontal shoulder thing, and I also included the eyes and the nose and the mouth. So what I do here is I increase transparency of the original sketch, and then I trace over it with what I want the final lines to look like. Here I add in more fur and texture to the wolf and almost shade in a little. Typically it'd be easier to zoom in, but I didn't want to do that because I wanted you guys to be able to see the reference as well and be able to compare. So when you draw the fur, you can typically just do quick, short strokes, and that just helps create almost a random kind of texture, which is what fur is. It's quite random, so that works. Once you're done creating the overlayer, you can just delete the original sketch, and then you can just touch up on details that such as this, which were a bit messy and unclear, or you can just find spots that you want to improve on or fix. So what I've done here is I've copied and pasted in another reference image, which I did just to have the right colors that I wanted to draw this specific wolf. Here you just want to have the main colors. You don't need to focus on shading or texture just yet. The fill tool is actually a really good tool to use, especially for coloring in the base layers and just like large chunks of fur. So I use a lot of layers. I recommend to use layers because it just helps a lot when you want to go, for example, next, like really close to the other color of fur, but you don't want to mess it up. Layers are just like really helpful. So as amazing as layers are, you should watch out when you're using them because you might lose track of which layer you're on. You could paint on the wrong layer, which can be just like a horrible disaster. Or you could have just too many layers and that could cause just a huge mess because you'll be looking to erase this one spot and you'll just be going through all of your layers, and it's just really tiresome. So eyes are typically quite hard for many people, so you just gotta remember that towards the top eyes are darker, or just, you know, typically in this case, and towards the bottom they're a bit lighter because that's just how the light plays on your eyes. When you include that, it makes it more realistic. So here I use this smudge tool that Sketchbook provides, where it's kind of scratchy, and I like to use that to improve my fur texture. So for the shading, I use, well, it's called a synthetic round bristle brush, but basically if you don't use Sketchbook, what it is a paint brush with a smudge aspect to it. So I think that's really helpful, so you can get the dark parts and also the light parts and get this kind of paint-ish texture. And yeah. Not only do you want to make parts darker, but you also want to make parts lighter. That's just to make it look more realistic. So typically, instead of just using white, you would want to use the color of the fur and then just lighten it. So now the wolf is mostly complete, and I'm just going to be starting on the background, and if you just wanted to see the wolf, then you can just stop here. But if you want to, you know, maybe get something out of the background too, then you can just keep watching. So here I just start out with a common green for the grass, just like a starting point. So here I start with the camo paintbrush, and I increased the hue randomization color thing, and so that just made it look a bit more natural because the colors weren't specific. And I just kind of smudged it after, and then I drew in the trees. And make sure you have a starting point for the light. One side should be lighter and one side should be darker. And then I used the camo paint brush again for the leaves. And I made the trees different colors as well. So for the background, the backlight behind the trees, I use the gradient tool, and I made the middle bit the lightest and the outer sides darker. And then I used my scratchy smudge tool and just made it the light a little bit more varied. I also turned the opacity down. I made a layer under and just drew random lines for the trees, and then I copied it and then I pasted it in the layer below and decreased the opacity of that layer even more so that it creates some like distance and perspective and dynamic and everything. And then I just added leaves. I also added this light yellow onto the ground to show the light just catching the stray grass and leaves on the floor. And I put grass in front of the wolf as well to show that he's actually standing on the ground, and he's actually there and he's not just out of place. So as you can see with the background, I sketched over it with pencil, and I did this so it can match the style that I did the wolf in. So now I'll just add a couple of details and grass. And now you're done! Yay!